And you say your last name Schultze?
Schulze.
Cool. What's up, everybody? This is Tyler Mounts, and we're here for another episode of the Sea Life Podcast. I am excited to have my guest today. Her name is Alexis Schulze. She, along with her co-founder Steve, started Nekter Juice Bar in 2010. She is the company's chief visionary officer, and if you have not had the opportunity to stop into one of their locations, Alexis is going to share with us a little bit more about the company. So Alexis, it's good to have you today.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what Nekter is, both in terms of what you do, but also what the brand represents?
Okay. So Nekter, it started with the idea that it's sort of difficult for everyone to get fruits and vegetables in their diet, all the everyday, we're all so busy. So because I fell in love with how juicing made me feel, it was sort of a, hey, we should bring this more mainstream. So Nekter was sort of our attempt to take juice bars out of the back of, sort of granola markets and bring them sort of more mainstream, make it more accessible. And so that was...
Yeah, and there's something that are all over the place now.
Yeah.
And so when you think about what the brand represents, you're advocating for it's a lifestyle brand, right?
Yeah.
So you're advocating for a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea was just, not everybody has time to meal prep every day. So it's like, how can you sort of take, instead of driving through the drive-through, be able to go and grab a juice? And everything we make is made with, the freshest ingredients. Everything's very much just whole food based. So even our nut milk we're making from scratch. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. And delicious, by the way. Going back to the beginning, if you think about how the company started, I mean, essentially, from what I understand, you sort of started this out of it came as a solution to your own need. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you were, my understanding is your background was in education. You were on your way to becoming, or were doing some teaching, and then had kids. Mm-hmm. And then we're trying to become a yoga instructor as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so take me back to those days when you are a mom of young children studying to become a yoga instructor, and how juicing kind of started to play a role in your life.
Well, obviously multitasking, us moms, we sort of take the back seat. So it was after yoga, trying to shove some food down our throat, and a lot of people would go and get juice, and the juices tasted like, kind of warm, kind of murky, not always the best tasting things. So it was like really hard to choke down. And I felt bad, like, oh, I'm not a true yogi if I can't choke this down. So I started putting ice on it to make it more palatable, or adding more apple or more lemon. And so those tricks got me drinking juice. And then the more I drank it, the more energy I felt. There was so many incredible benefits. And obviously then I could make my juice and bring it with me and still have nutrients for my crazy days. So.
And where were you getting these juices at this point? Because this is a while ago, right?
Yeah.
Your kids are young, you're young.
Yeah.
There was not a cold pressed juice bar on every corner.
No, I know. Yeah. 10 years ago or 9 years ago.
And obviously they weren't very good back then. So where were you getting these juices from?
So Mother's Market had a little juice bar in the back, the one on 17th Street right before they moved. And this is in Costa Mesa. And yeah, I would just go into the back and, it was definitely, I think, intimidating for me. So part of my whole mission was like, how do you take that really intimidating thing where juices don't taste good, and and you're looking at the menu going, oh my gosh, this sounds really healthy.
Yeah.
And how do you make it mainstream?
Yeah. Well, and there's probably there's that, I think Richard Simmons line is like, if it tastes good, spit it out kind of thing. Like you're probably battling some of that internal psychology of like, if it tasted good, it wouldn't be good for me,
yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. But then how do you take, like, okay, you're drinking now kale, spinach, and we throw some apple and lemon, and then you're like, wow, it actually is good. It actually tastes good. And I think you develop a palate, and there's definitely like a range. You can have a juice with more apple in the beginning, and then eventually do less.
Wean yourself off the apple.
Yeah, exactly.
So what did that look like in terms of the early days of, when you think about your original product development? So you would go to Mother's and you would buy this juice, and then how would you take it did you just start doing it yourself, or were you taking the juices and trying to like add things to them to make them better?
Well, a little bit of both. When I'd order at Mother's, I'd be like, okay, add extra apple, put it over ice, do lemon. But then I started doing it at home, and then I started doing the smoothie thing because smoothies are a little bit easier. I mean, if anybody's ever juiced, it's like the biggest mess. I sometimes juicing beets, it looked like a crime scene in my house because like it would splatter everywhere. So it's a huge mess. It's a ton of cleanup, and it just takes a ton of time to juice. So it was like, okay, a lot of times I would still buy it at Mother's, but and then making smoothies, again, you're soaking nuts overnight and everything. I mean, the process is it's pretty time consuming.
And from an education standpoint, like where were you learning all this stuff like soaking the nuts overnight? I mean, where were you learning about in terms of what foods and juices were better to blend versus juice? I mean, how were you figuring all that out?
Well, I mean, the internet is such an incredible, but I read there's Clean by Alexander, I think it's Younger. There's a ton of incredible books out there, and I just was sort of like a sponge soaking it all up. Just at first, just trying to find out for myself, like, what is it about juicing that makes me feel so good? And what are the things that I need to pay attention to? Like, a lot of people was like, it should be warm and it should be first thing in the morning. But it's like, I kind of felt like, well, if you have to have your cup of tea first and then you drink, is it really that big of a difference? Isn't it better to still get it in your body? So it was like, there was so many hardcore guidelines that I was like, there's no way that you have to do it this way, So it was sort of, I just sort of researched till I was
and you were pushing back against the people that were advocating for the extremes.
Yeah.
It's like you were trying to make it, you were doing essentially what your brand is about and making it work for your lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming at this point you're young, and I mean you still are young obviously, but because you're younger, you're a young mom, you have young kids, you're studying to become a yoga teacher, and you're probably pretty healthy and pretty active at this point. Yeah. So what was it about juicing that you got so much benefit? Because it's not like you were the person who was sick, right?
Yeah.
And you went on this radical diet change. Like what was it that really made juicing magic for you?
Well, I think, if I'm being totally honest, I didn't love eating vegetables. I wasn't like, oh goody, I get to eat broccoli. And I don't think anyone really is like, if you have your choice between something a little more tasty and vegetables, generally, unless you're drowning it in butter and cheese, it's like, it's not the most decadent, appealing food to most people. So I think when you mix it in juices and smoothies, it actually does taste great. And so for me, it was just, I could get a lot more in me, and it's like, and I did find like, trying to add, vegetables to my eggs, I think a lot of us really struggle to add fruits and vegetables into our diet. It does take so much more planning and time. And so juicing was just that magic, like, wow, I just had all of this, and now I almost don't have to feel guilty if I don't have time to eat vegetables later, or if I want to have French fries or something. So.
Yeah, and from a stress eating standpoint, just kale doesn't quite take the edge off the way other things do.
It doesn't. You keep, you always keep trying to find that thing. But yeah, juicing it was like I could fill up. My energy levels were great. I mean, and I do think you do feel good. You get a totally different kind of energy from all those incredible nutrients and enzymes. It works.
So at some point, you're doing this and it's working for you. As a mom, you're like, this is convenient and I feel awesome. You start telling people about it.
Yeah.
Your friends, other moms, people in your neighborhood. I mean, what does that look like? You start becoming just this evangelist for
kind of
juicing.
I probably annoyed the hell out of everyone. I was like, here, try this. They're like, no, that looks disgusting. It's like swamp juice. But, everybody pretty much bought in after trying it. And so I think that was really like the turning point. It was like, my husband at the time was like drinking it all the time, and he was probably worse than I was about eating vegetables. And, just those friends, my sister-in-law who had like the worst diet eating, it was just turning those people on. I was like, there really is something to this, especially for all those people that don't eat healthy on a regular basis. So what did that, I mean, were you like slinging juices out of the back of your car, or were you just like sharing recipes or with other moms? I mean, I think a little bit of both. I mean, a lot of times I'd be like, here, bring it to my friends, like that, and or they'd be over like, I'm gonna make a juice. Do you want one? And yeah, like I really probably was pretty annoying if you took a bowl. You show up to the dinner party like you're like, oh, what can I bring? A salad? I'll blend it. Exactly. So at some point, you start to you realize that there are other people out there that
understand your struggle and are benefiting from the solution you've come with. And so you decide, I'm going to try and do this.
Yeah.
What was that decision like?
You know, it was a lot faster and probably a lot less well thought out than it should have been. I mean, we probably from the time we decided to open Nekter, it was about 3 months from when we signed our lease, and we're like, I mean, there was even the juice, the Popeyes acai that I threw on the menu the night before. I had never even made it. I was like, oh, I'll just put this on the menu and I'm sure it'll be great.
Oh my
And luckily it was. It was actually one of my favorite smoothies, but it was just, I was like, I think we need one with spinach and acai. And so it just was so random, like how it all came together. But it was quick. And honestly, you know, it probably makes most business people cringe, like no business plan. Nothing was really that well thought out. We got really lucky that things worked out.
Now, Steve, your husband,
Yeah.
he at this time, I mean, what did he think when you're like, hey, I want to open a juice bar?
He was, you know, he had done a couple cleanses, like all juice cleanses, and he was sort of buying in, especially after getting him juicing, and he was buying in. He definitely thought like there is something to this. I think I had him finally convinced.
So what from the time in your head of, I think I want to do this as a business. Now, obviously Nekter is all over now.
Yeah.
And you have franchisees, and it's a huge growing organization.
Yeah.
Was that in your head in the beginning stages, or was it more just?
You know, not, I mean, pre-planning, no, but then it was kind of funny. Something clicked. I think it was like the first week of business. I said, we're going to be the Starbucks of juice. Like, this is going to be.
Wow.
And he looked at me like I had 3 heads, and I was like, no, I just had this feeling like this is something that, you know, and it wasn't like, hey, we're going to sell this to people. It was, hey, this is something good for people. And it's like something, I think when you share it from a place of like, this is something I want to share because it's true, it's real. There's integrity behind it, you know, and there's a passion for how great it was. I mean, that's why I annoyed all my friends, you know.
Yeah.
So we just took that a step further, and I think it was, yeah. I mean, from that point, there was a cool, like, confidence in what we were doing. That.
And you began to fill a space, like you mentioned, Starbucks. Like there was no fast and good coffee at the time, and at this point, there was no delicious and convenient healthy juice. And so you recognized pretty early on that this was going to be something that could there could be a huge market for this.
Yeah, I mean, Starbucks sort of brought coffee mainstream, you know, and you're walking down the street, you see everyone with the Starbucks cups, and it was kind of like, you know what, I could see everyone walking around with the green juice in their hand. Like, this could be something similar. And this was before, you know, I mean, I think there was a little bit in New York. I mean, New York has always been a little ahead. There's a little bit in LA, but really juice bars there wasn't a juice bar in every corner. It wasn't quite so mainstream as it is today.
And probably why Steve thought you were crazy when you were like, this is going to be huge, because it's like, you know, at that point it wasn't huge. And so you were looking to the future.
Yeah.
So how long from the point in which you're like, hey, I want to open our own juice bar to your first day of business? Like, what was that look like? You mentioned it was pretty
3
fast.
months,
3 months. Oh, so
3
like
months.
the first conversation about it was like, but so you obviously you were a stay-at-home mom, so the transition was easier. But Steve, because he co-founded it with you, like what was he just like quit his? Did he have a job?
Well,
did he
he was doing infomercials, so we would just produce them. So he wasn't really like going to an office 9 to 5. He was actually golfing quite a bit. I think it affected his golf game more than anything. He always used to joke. He's like, I used to be a lot better golfer, and I was like, yeah. And it was funny because when we first started, I was so busy all of a sudden that it was like we were eating out a lot more, and I'm like, okay, I'm making everyone else more healthy, but we weren't as healthy because I didn't have time to, you know, make. I mean, there were nights we were late until, or I was there a lot. You know, working till 11 or whatever, you know, making juice. Especially when we first launched the cleanse, we were bottling the juices in the store. And so it was just like some days we'd have huge orders, so we'd be there pretty late. So
crazy. So let's walk me through that first store. So you decide you're going to do it. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming like napkin business plan it, right?
Yeah.
The napkin was in your head.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, oh, we'll just do that. Yeah.
And so you go about finding a place.
Yeah, we looked at several locations on 17th, signed our lease pretty quick. We were supposed to be going to Europe and instead of going on vacation, we ended up signing the lease, and we're like, okay, we're not going.
And so, I mean, was it hard to get a lease?
No, the first store was a lot more simple, because it was just, sort of a basic lease. I mean, it was kind of scary signing off on that when we had no idea how well it was going to go. I mean, there was a lot of fear, and I think Steve used to drive up and down 17th going, "How do I market this? How do I get people in the door?" Because you just don't know.
But 17, that's near where you guys live.
So it's our community.
It's a community. So at worst case scenario, the ladies you were pawning your juices off out of your car are going to come visit you. And so there's a little bit of comfort in that.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, this is 2010, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming with the way the real estate market was, like, you probably could get decent terms for your lease.
Yeah.
Did you need a lot of, like, where did the capital come from to do the build? I mean, you mentioned it was a simple store.
Yeah.
Your stores now are beautiful. I'm assuming the first one was maybe a little more bare bones.
Yeah, I think it was we spent a little bit of money. It was already a coffee shop. So we just walked in. We're like, okay, we can slap some wood on top of this. I mean, it was about as bare minimum. I want to say about 50,000, 60,000 is what we put into it.
Okay.
And that's doing the backyard, all the furniture, all the juicers, everything. And that was our own personal, investment. And so hence why it's so scary. But
so you do that 3 months later, first day open for business, and lines around the door, or what?
Well, first day was a lot of our friends, coming out to support. It probably dropped off a little bit, but really quickly. I mean, I think probably within the first month we were breaking even, if not making a little bit of a profit.
Wow, within the first month. And was that just due to, I mean, it's you and Steve were running it, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we had a guy we brought over. I actually stole one of the guys from Mother's. Don't tell.
Your old
guy who
barista,
made my
juice,
yeah, exactly,
juicer,
yeah. So, but yeah, I totally lost my train of thought now. We had him in. It was mostly me working in the store. We had hired a few people, and really, it was just, I don't know. I mean, it just happened. I think, it was our community. So I'm at yoga, handing out free drink cards everywhere I went. I mean, I remember I went into Staples and there was like kind of a heavier guy in there, and he was eating his fast food, and I gave him a drink cart, and I'm like, come in and I'll help. And he came in the next day. I got him our toxin flush, which is like the sweetest, and I saw him the next time. He's like, I felt tingly, like I felt alive, like there was something, and he was in every day after that. So it was really just a little bit of that grassroots, and then really just the products sold themselves. People drank it, and then they came back the next day. So that was cool.
And you guys just kept operating costs low. You were focused on it was basic business, right? You're focused on the customer, focused on the product, and then allowed for that. And now this is before social media is huge. So when you said marketing, like, you're literally out there passing out drink cards, visiting yoga studios.
Yeah.
What else was business development like back then?
Yeah, I mean, well, part of it, you said keeping costs low. When I originally started, I would order like the nicest cashews I could find. And then you're like, well, we're just blending them. Why do we need to have whole fancy cashews? Because we're making the raw cashews. So it was like figuring out stupid things like that you would think would be common sense that just weren't. It was like, oh, we could save like half as much money by buying like pieces of cashews since we're blending them anyways, and just little things like that had no idea.
Yeah, so as you guys became better operators, you were able to cut costs, and then business grows, and so next thing you know, you're profitable.
Yeah.
And then you decide the first one is going well, we're going to open a second one. How long was that after that you did that?
So we opened the first one in October, and then in March we opened the doors of the next one.
Wow.
So actually, I think we signed that lease in December. There was a gentleman in Crondalmar that was trying to get out of his yogurt. And so another one, it was just like sort of already built out. We could sort of come in and just make it look pretty, add a little paint coat and coat of paint and some wood. And we sort of had our vibe, but we already had, it was so close in the area. We had a lot of the same people kind of going and talking about it. So again, that grassroots, like word of mouth, was huge for us. I mean, and we did have social media. It wasn't anything like it is today,
but
we, we were doing it.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
Some promotion, obviously, on that. Yeah.
Some of them I think back, like, I can't even believe I posted that. I got like 5 likes. It's like, okay, clearly this isn't my bag. Someone else needs to be doing this.
So you have two stores now. They're both going well. And then what does the growth look like? Like when do you guys decide that you want to, because you eventually moved to the franchise model,
Yeah.
which is, I guess that like my understanding is you had a little bit of a false start in that area and then had to backpedal. So tell me about what that process was like.
Yeah, so right away, the girl the graphic designer was working with us wanted in. So we built a partnership store with her. And then I think we had hired.
And sorry, partnership store. So basically,
So
it's another store that you own, but she's now a minority owner in one of the stores. Is
yeah,
that
I
how it
think
works?
we did a 50-50. They built it out, and we kind of, it was sort of, we were helping them run it, helping them train. And I mean, it was sort of just, we didn't even really know what we were doing at that point. So at that point, I think then we were like, well, we really need to look at how to do a franchise store. And so that's when we brought in more of legal team and actually like a consultant that helped us find people and actually screen them to some degree. So I think at that point we brought on 4 or 5 pretty local franchisees, and they all basically knew Nekter from their own experiences. So they, were already passionate about it. So it was a really cool. In that way, we had the right passion. It was a great way to like sort of transition in. But the problem was we had no idea what we were doing. We were training everything. All my recipes were a handful of spinach. Well, your handful, my handful, and the really tall guy behind the counter's handful are completely different. And so we had to really streamline that. And it took us a while to figure out how. And then, at some point we brought in people who we thought knew what they were doing, but then we lost sort of our mojo, our culture, because you bring in people who maybe come in with different set of systems from a different location, and they slap all these rules down and sort of, I don't know, maybe break the stride that we had going as far as like the fun, passionate part of it. And all of a sudden we're just focused on cost of goods and all these, and it just, it changed everything too much. Like I think a little bit is great. And I think intertwining that through your passion in a gentle way probably would have been smarter. But we had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, two things happened. Essentially, you realize like people, when they franchise, they're paying for their systems and processes and that you sort of didn't have in place.
Yeah.
And so you quickly scrambled to try and get those, and you basically wholesale shifted to things that affected your company culture. So you got the operators and you got the processes, but then now all of a sudden what was so cool and made Nekter so appealing to people changed.
Yeah.
And so how did you recover? What did the shakeout? Did any of these franchisees leave? Did any of the stores fail? Or was it more just going back to the drawing board?
Actually the one in West Hollywood she ended up selling, I believe, or I think we bought it back from her. Was that just like, hey, sorry, like we'll buy it back from you because you had left her out a little bit? A lot of what we were doing was, so we needed to be there hands-on to make it work. Like, so we had to, like, our training teams were in, but there wasn't, so I don't know so much, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of it was our lack of systems, but then a lack of knowing what type of operator we're looking for too. Because, I think someone's got to really be 100% in and buy in. So, it was a lot of scrambling. We'll go back to that.
So then one of the things that you have to do then is what a lot of people we've had on the show before talk about is you have to build the right team.
Yeah.
So talk to me about what that looked like for you guys and how long that took and what the process for coming up with a new, because of it, not to spoil the ending, but you guys go back to the franchise model, but with much more success. So what was the team building like in that process?
I think, as with anything, especially when you don't know, learning where we were failing gave us the through a highlighter or a spotlight on what we needed to fix. So bringing in a training person to write all our training materials, even a couple of our franchisees worked with our team to help streamline, bringing in like, okay, what is Starbucks doing? What are, really like looking at all these successful brands as models of how can we streamline what we're doing? Because it was always like, well, not everything's so simple. Everything sort of has to be weighed and measured, and we have to go back and look and then try to figure out the cost. For a while there, it was like, okay, 5 blueberries on an acai bowl. It was like, but look at that. Like from a cost standpoint, great. But like if you look at it, it looks pretty cheesy, So it was like, how do you balance all these things? So we had to have lots of different people who were basically in the field understanding what was going on. And so they could throw the counter to, no, you can't just put 5 blueberries on there. Our customers are going to freak out, you know?
Yeah.
And so then, so there was people doing that. And then we brought in the training, and then really like trying to bring in people who knew how to run the stores or how to run multiple stores. And we didn't really have a whole lot of that either.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. I mean, we really had to bring in everyone.
So can you, just because I think this is fascinating, what did you do then going forward? Because you mentioned the ways that these people coming in and these outside perspectives had damaged the company culture or the brand culture in the past. What did you do going forward that allowed you to bring in outside expertise while maintaining that kind of X factor, culture and brand that you had going for you?
Well, I think for us, what had happened is we stopped, you think, okay, these people know everything, so you bring them in, and then you realize that maybe they don't know everything, and that people have worked their butts off to get you to this point, maybe know a lot more than we were giving them credit. So how do you merge and really sort of respect the processes we did have? I mean, because we got really far without anything.
Yeah.
I mean, we had doubled in size year after year, and really had not a whole lot of training. So really respecting the processes that were already working, and not so much come in and completely redo and undo everything we had done, but finding people who had a respect and really understood the culture, I think, was the biggest piece. So I don't know that you can completely undo it. We sort of had quite a bit of turnover at that point, and kind of a hard lesson on everybody, but we did all figure out what we wanted, which gave us the wherewithal to know what to do going forward, which I think saved us now as we've grown and grown and grown. So,
and what then once you kind of hit that sweet spot with regards to having the right personnel in place, it was just, the growth was massive, right?
Yeah.
You said you doubled in size year over year.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was, and now, I mean, this is such a huge industry. Like, there's juices everywhere you go, and you guys were just kind of like blazing the trail for it.
Yeah.
And you guys then decide to go out of state.
Yes.
And that was essentially, I mean, going back really quick, how many more corporate stores did you open after that kind of like trial run in the franchising?
I want to say another like 10 to 15. So we had the original franchisees. So, and I think we were up to, probably close to 30 stores.
Wow.
And we did try to go out of state. So we were doing great in Arizona. Arizona was an easy market. There's nothing.
And those were franchise again, or those are corporate?
Those were corporate. So that was
stores.
a big market we hit in between that little lull of franchising. And that was a great test for us. I mean, it was a great market. It was actually like basically people flocked there. It's hot, good weather, and there's no other juice bars at the time. But then we went to Denver, and we were reliant sort of on, our real estate guy to tell us where to go. There was nobody. We had one store that we opened. So it's like, you don't have that grassroots marketing campaign. You've got a manager who's, in her 20s and maybe doesn't really, doesn't quite have the experience. At the time too, we're hiring people who didn't have the experience because our budgets were a lot lower for what we were running. And, now we know you bring in a little bit better manager and everything's so much easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, all those lessons, but we realized that was where a person who lived in the community, who could do and sort of replicate what we did on 17th Street, where we're bringing in, you're going to your yoga place, you're handing out drink coupons everywhere. So that sort of component was really kind of what made us realize franchising might be really smart as we expand. So it's too hard to have a district manager, a regional manager in a, someone making all the juices, monitoring everything, paying attention. When we can't be there to watch what everybody's doing, I mean, who knows what was going on in a lot of those places. So,
and from a ownership standpoint, you have someone who's less invested potentially in quality control and things like that. So, but if it's a franchisee, like, this is their livelihood, so there's some safety in that. And obviously, you guys are, I mean, going back to your first attempt when after a couple stores and like a year you're franchising or whatever, and now you guys are 10 to 15 stores. I mean, you guys must have been super buttoned up and dialed in with your operations.
Yeah.
So then the next time around, the franchise thing works really, really well.
Yes, absolutely. And knowing the right partners. I mean, it's not people that are passionate, but also have a little bit of experience or a little bit of an ability to juggle. And a lot of them are buying multiple stores. I mean, one of our great ones I think he had like 15 Subways. So he's already very familiar with the food industry and how it works and had a great team already in place for himself. So again, setting our people up for success is sort of falls to us too, picking the right people.
Now, on the personal side of things, I mean, you're still a mom. You are running this rapidly growing business. You mentioned the fact that you started to kind of almost like push your own health to the back burner at times, dealing with stress and things. Like, talk to me briefly about what that was like and what the challenges and how you navigated that as this company turns into something that you kind of knew in the beginning was going to be huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, it's fun to look back on now because I think like, okay, when I first started, it was like I had no idea what I was doing. So to figure it out on your own sort of empowers you in a way I don't think anything else can. And you can read as many books as you want and as many Brené Brown's podcasts or TEDx, whatever. But I think that like truly having to figure things out and understand, and then I think the power, which is such a weird thing, all of a sudden I'm firing people, which I hated, and like just understanding all these pieces of the puzzle that they force you to grow anytime you're out of your comfort zone, anytime you're not doing things you're used to doing. I mean, I think the whole entire process was out of my comfort zone, but like I grew into it. And I think that like I figured out a lot of who I was and my own strength, which is a really cool thing, but at the same time, not changing. Because I think a lot of people can fall prey to ego and, you get a little power happy. And I think that's a big piece of like really staying true to who you are and why you do what you do.
And do you feel that through some of those challenges and some of the adversity you faced in that you kind of, that helped refine and develop who you eventually became today?
Definitely.
In a positive way?
Yeah. I mean, anytime you fall on your face multiple times and get back up, I mean, if you read all the inspirational quotes, it's like get back up again. But and then learning and just instead of continuing to make the same mistakes, to be able to learn from them. I mean, that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah. So where's the company at now? I mean, how many states are you in? How many stores do you have? And what does the future of the brand look like?
I think we're in 30 states. We have 175 franchise stores set up for the next, So currently we're at 130 stores, I believe. So about 50 corporate. It might be a little lower. We're actually franchising a few of the ones we have. And then another 70, 80. Yeah. So,
Gosh, crazy. And so in international at some point, I mean, what does that look like? I mean, the food industry, I'm assuming, would be tricky in different countries, but...
Well, we already have one in, I think, Iran, but
really?
It's not Nekter. They took our entire logo, our entire menu. We were cracking up because we found them on social media. Like, there's like an exact replica of Nekter, but there's not much you can do about it. I mean, we've tried.
So they just copied you.
They just did, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So we are international. We're not making any money off that.
What do they say? They say imitation is the greatest form of flattery, right?
Yeah,
so
that's great.
At least you're doing something if they want to copy it in Iran.
Right? Yeah, no, but we'll see. There's so many, again, more processes probably that need, I mean, and we're still learning. There's still so much, and I think it's an even different market now, because there are so many other juice bars popping up, especially Orange County. It's funny because we're sort of starting over with our marketing in these places, Florida, not so many people are like, haven't been hit over the head with juice, so it's an interesting sort of starting where we started, starting over, and how to like sort of bring back in what we did and kind of,
which is sort of create the market, right?
Yeah.
So you're in some places, I mean, I guess that would be a challenge because you're talking about some places being super saturated and other places where there's no demand at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow,
and
crazy.
weather driven. I mean, there's so many pieces of the puzzle. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So if it's cold, you got to have warm juices, right?
Yes.
Again.
Yeah.
Go
And
back to your
oatmeal.
Mother's
I
Day.
mean, yeah, we got to kind of rethink a lot of things. So I don't think you're ever done growing, right? So.
Crazy. Tell me, there's a question that I ask all of our guests, and that is, what is something that you have learned or a principle that you operate that you think translates across different industries?
I think, oh gosh, I mean, I think I'm going to answer that probably way too broad, but I just feel like being able to learn and grow from your mistakes and really being able to hold true to the integrity of why you start what you do. Because I think where people sort of lose it is just by getting sidetracked or maybe not, I don't know, it's easy to get distracted. It's easier to get caught up in a lot of things, but holding true to who you are and what your purpose is probably the main thing I think that's helped us stay where we are.
And you mentioned to me that when it started, it was less about making money and it was more about sharing what you had experienced and sharing something really impactful, which is health.
Yeah.
Has that been a challenging thing for you personally to do you have to kind of keep coming back to that and revisiting that for yourself, as it grows and the numbers get larger and there's more involved with that? Do you experience a challenge with that, or is that kind of your guiding light or your North Star that keeps you going?
It is my guiding light. It is hard, and I have to keep a lot of the people around me with blinders on. Just remember this. There's always going to be someone that comes along with something and tries to improve what you're doing. But if we just stay true, and I always use the In-N-Out Burger example, and I'm like, if they put chicken nuggets on their menu, who knows where they'd be today? And the In-N-Out always has a line out. I mean, it is the biggest. I know it's not the healthiest example, but as far as fast food goes, it's not as bad. But keep staying true to what they do. What you do and do it well.
And so, and you're the chief visionary officer. So towing the line between developing and growing and adapting, but also staying true that's the line you have to walk.
It's hard. It's a hard balance, and it's hard to keep everybody. I think that's my biggest job, right? Trying to keep everybody on that, pull them back in, or keep them in line, and kind of remind them what we're all about.
Cool. Transitioning now to the muzzle load round. So just a couple short format questions.
Okay.
What have you accomplished in your business that you're the most proud of?
I just think helping people be healthier. I think that's sort of an easy one for us. At Nekter, it's just, I do get stopped by a lot of people. They're like, you know what? You changed my life. You make it easier for me to, which is cool. I mean, it seems so, I'm still taken back by it, even 9 years in. So.
If you could go back in time, what would you tell the younger version of yourself?
Oh gosh, it'd be a long conversation. Probably, I think personally, stop being so critical. I think we all have a tendency to have that really horrible voice in our head that's always pointing out what's not working, and trying to rush through and get to the next step in life. But just being present and quieting that, I want to call her bad names, that voice in your head.
What are you reading, listening to, or subscribed to currently for personal or professional development?
Gosh, I think I've read every Brene Brown, every Gabby Bernstein, more, and I do a lot more personal. But I also, from a Nekter standpoint, all of the medical medium books, I've been kind of tearing through those. It's such a big thing right now. Big trend.
Yeah, obviously. So you have some personal and professional stuff that you kind of toggle back in between. Practically speaking, from a cadence standpoint, do you have anything, or is it do you go through waves?
I go through waves. I sort of burn out.
Yeah, so you
and
just
then
go
I'll just
all
read
Brene
a trash
Brown
novel and just check out completely. But I think so much of it depends on what's going on in our lives, what we're able to focus on.
Habits and routines that you have personally to stay on top of your game.
Okay, so definitely incorporating vegetables into I've noticed when I started to get a little lazy, and it was like, oh, I'll just make a quesadilla, and it was like, that would be my dinner. And I did notice a difference in my energy and my health and just how you start to feel. So it is important to have the right food to fuel you. So that would be number one. But I also use my, and I never miss a workout. That's my me time, my sanity. That's a big one too. So, not letting your health take a backseat to everything else.
Yeah. Which
And
is
then,
probably from an authenticity standpoint, right?
yeah,
Is important.
yeah, it is. Well, and just being true, it making time for yourself, self-love. I mean, I've read all the books, self-love is important, and
Yeah.
that goes to feeding your body and, making time for yourself. So,
Great. People listening who want to know more, check out your company. Obviously, they can stop into one of the stores. But any other like social medias or websites, anything, resources that you point people to?
no, I mean, I think most of it's on our site. Yeah. We've got
Cool.
yeah.
So and it's just nekter.com and
It's Nekter Juice Bar, Nekter. So we spell it phonetically. So
Nekter,
Juice Bar.
Nekter,
Yeah.
juicebar.com.
Yeah.
Awesome. Alexis, thanks for sharing more about your story. And thanks for what you're doing for all the people that you want to help get healthier in a convenient way. So appreciate all your time.
Thank you.